Shall we do a quick round of introduction? Yusra, shall we start with the ladies first?
Hello everyone, I'm Yusra Saleh, Executive Director from AE7. It's nice to see you all here.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. I'm Álvaro Paredes from Design Lab, and it's a pleasure to be on the panel with these friends.
Thank you. Mohammed?
Hi, I'm Mohammed Adib, Chief Design Officer, D1 Architects and Engineers.
Oh, great support. Okay, listen, full disclosure, I've prepared a whole set of questions that were shared with you in advance. I said it before, if you guys want to have a conversation amongst the three of you, I'm very comfortable taking a back seat. I'll pick you up and direct you where needed. Let's just start with this one. They are for everyone, so if you feel like you want to jump on it, go ahead. Is the fusion of art and science in architecture more of a romanticized ideal than a practical reality?
Shall I can start. No, I mean, architecture, design in general is the fusion of art and technology. So in a sense, it's a building is a sculpture that could be used. An object is a sculpture that could use. So I think it's a part of every good, successful, usable design.
Okay, yeah. What's your take on it, Alvaro?
I think at the end when you're playing with the volumes, the 3Ds and all that, at the end I think that makes creating a sculpture, but a sculpture that is going to be livable. I think that's the important part of it. So, yeah.
Okay, what about the practical side of it? I'm sure we all can think of, I know for a fact that we have a bunch in Dubai, some new icons even, that are beautiful, but not so practical on the inside or on the operations side.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, every building should be functional, but also the building has to serve its purpose. A public building or an iconic building can allow certain waves of sort of contradiction in its use. I think it's in that case it can be allowed, but because it's serving a different thing. The same, it's more sculptural than use. The efficiency is not the same. The spaces are bigger. It allows the same use but with wasted space. What cannot be the case is a building that is iconic or a very let's say more aesthetic than functional building that could not be used. It should be used, but it shouldn't be as efficient as a more functional building.
I think you might also be referring to buildings that are innovative, so out of the box, not your usual building, iconic architecture, buildings that stand out, especially in Dubai. And in that case, often we're looking at architecture that pushed the limit and went into experimentation and trying out new things. So it might also be that sometimes things are not 100% functional, but the building is sound, engineering-wise it stands, and it's a good building. But maybe the efficiency of spaces are off, and I think that that's okay. Especially in the Middle East, we see a lot of trial and error. It's a fact. And it pushes the industry forward.
I think she has to tell us which building she's referring to.
I think you know which building I mean. It has a hole in the middle.
Okay. Dollar shapes. Okay.
I think a problem of that, which is something that we need to check, is that when you try to do something that is iconic, might not age very well, because many of these iconic go with fashion as well. Many years ago maybe it was more the square and tall and slim, and nowadays maybe it's more twisting or holes in the middle or skins outside. I think that's important as well, that we, at the end, when you design a building, it's for 10, 50, 100 years. So I think iconic, yes, we cannot deny that, but I think we need to check something that is not just what everybody is doing today, because that building is going to change the skyline of the city for the next 50 years. So yeah. I think it's important not to do something that is going to look very fashionable today and tomorrow in a magazine, but how that reacts to the city, and I think that's important. going to that building as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, with the icons, I just mention it because it's something that, probably a lot of people can resonate with. And I'm sure, like, in your day-to-day, in your everyday projects, which may not always be as glamorous, I wonder where the balance is from. Actually, it's a question for all of you. Where do artistic vision and engineering precision truly complement each other without conflict also?
I just want to go back to that building as well, actually.
I should have never started this.
No, I mean, I hate that building. I don't like it. But it serves its purpose. It's a statement for a certain thing, and it makes sense the way it is. It could be done better. It could be done worse, for sure. But coming on to this next question, it could be a good example of that. There's certain design or manufacturing processes on that building that were quite unique and quite difficult to achieve. And I think this is what Yusra was referring to a bit, that these projects, we need them to push our boundaries, to make us sort of test certain things that probably later it will be better and better. But we need those buildings, really, we need those buildings, whether we like them or we don't like them. Personal opinion, if we ask 100 people, I'm sure no one will agree. This is the good thing. However, the use of the building, yes, you can go into a building and like it, but you don't know why you like it. There are certain things about proportions, about the space itself, and going back to the donut, the actual spaces and the use of the areas that you can use are very well done. It's quite the impact of it is almost maybe the outside has something to do with it. You're relieved to stop looking at the outside and you go inside the building. It's quite spectacular. So there's no good and bad.
I mean, what you're also saying is like someone needs to show us that it can be done, and then someone else will push that boundary, and probably the Middle East is the best and most fun playground for this, right? That's why we're all here in the end, no? I mean, that's how I feel. Question is, let's see how real we get on this question.
I'm not going to mention the donut anymore.
I have something else that we can go off on. Do engineers stifle creativity, or is it the lack of technical knowledge amongst designers that limits innovative design?
No, I think actually these buildings help on that. I think when you design something that needs sort of a new construction technique or material or pushing that forward, it was these precast beams. I mean, when they were not here, you could only do certain meters of cantilever, then that will push back. And that opens a new way of design. Because if you can reduce the slabs that you need for certain... So I think all that technology, when it goes together with the design, is actually quite good. I think it helps to move the design forward. So I don't think it's a lack of knowledge. I think it's good to know the limitation of the, gravity is gravity. You need to know those limitations, but pushing the boundaries, working together, different disciplines to achieve that, I think is good, because the next design, then you know what can be achieved. I think all that is what helps to move forward. In the past, it was only 3 meters cantilevers between arches, then you push that when you go. So I think all that is a long process, but that helps.
Do you think, and maybe you can share, like from what you're seeing in the office, do you think that designers are equipped enough with that technical information? And maybe you can tell something about like the young designers that you're seeing, like how does education fill in? Because when I'm at the universities, for example, everybody wants to do concept, everybody wants to do the beautiful pictures, but there's so much to do on the technical side of things. How do you guys feel about it?
I'll go back to the original question. So,
yeah.
And also some of what you said now. There might be a difference at the academic level. So there might be a divorce when you look at the academia, architecture versus engineering. They might not communicate well. But once you move into practice, that cannot happen. So one is not divorced from the other. The process is one that is linear. Each one of them understands the constraints of the other. So the moment a building is built, you know that there was communication between the two. The challenges are of other nature, and we try them every day. It's budget, it's time, material, know-how in the place where you're operating, legislation, the client's taste sometimes. So these are the real challenges that make it or break it. And I think that when we look at, I'm going to speak about Saudi Arabia, there's a big push for the expression of art in architecture. And I mean fine art, not just art as the architect. And I think that there's space here to experiment with the topic of this panel.
I think the key there was time as well. Sometimes nowadays it's not so much budget, because especially in this region, many times budgets are there. The technologies, the timing is sometimes the constraint. Some of the projects that we're doing now, they come with crazy timelines that they go the opposite with innovation sometimes. At the end, to get something new or to apply what is there, you need to study, you need to visit, you need to see what has been done, and that's time. You might need to travel, you might need to sit down and open a book. I think time is one of the things that is fighting more against this new or out-of-the-box design sometimes.
So, I mean, these challenges, they occur everywhere, anytime. So, the change is the only constant, right? When this happens, then who takes the lead on being innovative or to come up with the solution? Do you expect the designer to take that lead to, work with the new timeline, or do you challenge your engineer or the technical side of things?
No, I think always the designer has to take the lead on these things. Two things. I think I go back to your question about young people. How should they be prepared? I strongly believe that an architect should not know anything about structure when they're studying. I strongly believe that. I managed to go through all of my career without doing a single structural or math class. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I think we have to depend on the know-how of the engineers, but we have to always challenge them. We have to always make sure that the limits are reached. And it really depends on the engineer. There are engineers that find, no, this is the best we can do. There are engineers that are totally out of it. And one experience, I mean, when I was studying, actually, we had all our projects, we had to calculate them structurally, but we had, I was in the AA in London, and we had a department within Arup, which was of Arup then, which calculated the structures for us. And you can just imagine, first, second year students in the AA at the time, which are just totally out of their brains, going to Arup to calculate things. I remember once I had an idea of doing a building out of rope, and they actually calculated the whole structure, and they gave me the specs of the kind of rope you needed to check, use how many plot, if it's multi, the material in it, how you do the knots, things like that. I'm sure they had a hell of a nice time, used to calculating bridges, and all of a sudden someone comes with that. So this is nice, but there's always a solution. There's always something, and you can see it. What's happening in Saudi, or what happened in the Dubai or the UAE in the last few years, has always been challenging. From Burj Al Arab to Burj Khalifa to what's happening here in Murabba or the line. All these things are going totally beyond what we have done to now. But it's possible. So obviously it's possible not because an engineer has started calculating in a different way. It's possible because some designer or some client had a vision and wanted to exceed that. And this should always be paramount in design. Everyone else should adapt to that or the vision, including the architect sometimes, and try and make it work.
I was smiling because for a second I thought you were going to say, once I designed this donut. I thought, oh, here we go.
I said I'm not going to mention it anymore.
Okay, great. Listen, okay. Are we losing the artistic soul of architecture sometimes in favor of functionality and efficiency? We mentioned icons. I think with icons it's very obvious, right? We see them more as sculptures or engineered constructed masterpieces. But in your average project, like how much time is there really for the creativity, for the artistic project? I know here we are so pressured for time to turn things around real quick. do you then sacrifice your time on that side to deliver on the other end?
I think sometimes might be the opposite. For us, we mostly do hospitality. Doing a 22 square meter room in the center of Singapore, Tokyo, Hong Kong, because the space require more design or more hours to design it than a 65 or 70 square meter room. You know, when you have the luxury of a space, at least I don't know if you agree, but from the layout and space plan, it's easier. You put a bathroom here, nice views. When you really constrain, then that's where you really need to think a bit more, okay, where we put the luggage. And that's when you come up, oh, maybe under the bed we can put this nice thing that the luggage disappear, but it's there. So I think when you force to utilize every square inch of the project, sometimes actually that pushes the design a little bit more. So it's not against that. Even budgets, you know, sometimes when the budget is reduced and the fact that you need to do a nice looking project or room with a limited budget, it needs another creativity, because if you have the budget, you put fabrics, you put marble, you put whatever. But if you say, no, we don't have the budget, and then you need to play with some art craftsmen on the plaster directly, I think that also brings the creativity out. So I don't think one thing is against the other. I don't think luxury or middle scale should be the opposite. So for us, at least, sometimes the most experienced team, those are the ones that need to review some of these more constrained projects.
Thank you. Very, very clear examples. I really like that. Yeah, Yusra, how's that for you?
I agree with him fully. From a development point of view, for example, the designer makes a very big difference in the return on investment for the developer. So if a space is properly designed, every inch, as you were saying, then it's all the better for the owner. But you are also right when you point out that perhaps the average, let's say, residential unit or office space in Riyadh specifically, or in Jeddah, where I'm from, is not all that. It's not. It doesn't strike us as the best place to be. And that is because somewhere along the line, someone gave in to the constraints that we were discussing and did not push themselves, and they did not push themselves in really delivering the best possible. But then creativity is the key, is the solution to this monotony or inefficiency or, you know, non-attractiveness of design. It's to bring out the artistic vein in you that you were trained for as an architect or an engineer, to solve problems, because we are problem solvers.
Okay, yeah, clear.
I totally agree. I mean, if you give us now, the three of us, tell us, design a 2-car garage made out of brick with a pitched roof, I'm sure we'll do very different things. And I'm sure none of us will do a square garage with a pitched roof. We almost create our problems and try and solve them then, you know, which I think is very healthy in design.
Yeah.
I think this is something very good. But going back to the sort of a normal thing, the same as we would go crazy in a 2-car garage out of brick, the same thing we should do with when we're doing a normal apartment. We should try and minimize the corridor. You know, if really a 66 square meter apartment has 10 meters of corridor, it doesn't make sense. If it has 1 meter of corridor, it's perfect. So all these things, even the limitations are there. It's our job to improve it, to optimize it, and to make it as comfortable, livable as possible.
Yeah, I see. Let's talk about the tools also a little bit, right? I know that you love everything tech, and you know you just did a master class before this one. Are architects and designers, to your opinion, becoming too dependent on software, resulting in designs that lack the human touch and artistic intuition? I mean, we also see so much like eye candy, right, on all the social media and all these beautiful things. And how dependent do you, where do you see the role of technology, maybe in your work? Where do you see it going in the future when it comes to maintaining that artistic value?
I agree totally. I mean, I think technology, it's a tool. It's helped us a lot, but also it's destroying design. You know, there's something about when we started with CAD, before you had to sketch something to think about it. Now you have a mirror, rotation, change, things like that. All of a sudden you've done 12 options, none of them work, none of them you spend time on. And whereas you sit down and instead of doing these 12, think about something and develop it, this is right. So technology has to be as a tool. It cannot be as a design item. It has to help us optimize our production, gives us more time to think so that we can produce quicker for one side. The other side is the massification of the images you're talking about, Pinterest, Instagram, and all this. I think this is good in a way, the same as IKEA opened design to everyone. I think it's good in a way, but also obviously it has its bad connotations as well. So.
Yeah. So you wouldn't rely on that for the creativity part?
No. I think you should try. Yes, you get inspired by things, but you get more inspired by looking at a full building than looking at a picture of a detail.
What about as a communication tool?
Yeah, I mean, we cannot avoid it. It's obviously to put it out there, but it's a blade with two sides. You know, it helps that it shows everyone design, but also it helps that people are much easier inspired if they see other designs. Not to say that it's copying.
I think about communication, the problem is as well how quick the clients used to now they want to see everything. The last RFP we got, it was relatively small hotel and they wanted 180 renders. It was not even physical time to do it, but it's getting for them that they need to see every single corner of the unit. And again, there's no time to do that, and many times there's not even budget. So I think as a tool is important, but also we need to make sure this doesn't fall into, at the end, basically you need to see every single corner, 25 renders of an apartment. I don't think that plays well for us either. That limits a lot the creativity as well, because you don't design everything on concept design. It's a lot of things that you keep doing on schematic, on DD, even doing construction. And if you need to show everything on renders already and these new tools on concept design, then the rest is just production, which in my opinion should not be the case. You keep designing as the project progresses, as you keep talking with engineers, as you keep applying new materials that are on the market. So the design should be the whole process until the project gets open, pretty much. And nowadays it seems like when they sign off at the end of concept in all these new tools and renders, it seems like the design is finished. I think that's a problem.
Yeah. It sounds like incredible pressure as well. And also the way I sense it from you is that the client's demand or their brief has changed a lot. As you say, now they want to see every corner, every detail. Like how else would you be able to deliver that in the same or shorter time frame probably, right? Yusra, what's your take on this?
I completely
From your point.
agree. Yes, I agree. I've had similar experiences. There's a point that I'm sure no one will disagree on. When you use technology as a tool during the design process, that has improved our life tremendously. Think, for example, detection clashes and even the ability to visualize spaces. And you come from the AA, so out of the constraints of gravity. So, and then bringing that back into tools that allow you to somehow construct it. Think of facade design and everything that has improved due to technology. So there's that. But what you're talking about and what Alvaro was referring to is true. We're seeing a shift in the way we are designing or interacting with our clients because of renders. Once they're signed off, they're signed off. There's no going back. And what we've done, for example, where I come from in AE7, is that we've put a lot of work before, so at the pre-concept level, where we used to just sketch and then go to the client with a disclaimer that this will change. Now we do a little bit more than sketch. We speak to the engineer. We make sure that it's structurally feasible, that the systems we are rendering exist, that they're not just lines floating in space. And it has put a pressure on us, on our operations, because the design used to be and is a process that takes time. Everybody has a role during this process. So we are constantly reinventing the way we design. And I think it's not just us, it's every office out there that is working now in the Middle East and specifically in Saudi Arabia.
But as a negative thing, you're saying, yes.
I mean, honestly, I don't want to give an opinion because we're still in an experimental phase. I think that something good might come out of it, but it depends on how we will react. So, for example, even at a larger scale, urban design, the time frame of projects, of designing a concept master plan has tremendously shifted in the last 10 years. And anybody that comes new to the region is shocked by the number of weeks that are given in an RFP. But we still do it. So somehow we are shifting and responding to the market needs, which means that I don't think it's wrong. Is it right? I don't know. We have to see.
What do you think?
It's wrong.
I was like, let's see. I could read it from your face. Oh, God. All right. Listen, can we truly innovate in architecture if we constantly defer to the limitations of engineering? Or can we only as fast as the engineers can go? Or as far as the engineers can go? Let me make that nuance.
I think we go faster than them sometimes. Yeah, that's. I don't know if it's engineers here, but many times you pull that out. That building, that cantilever, this, and then you sit down with them and try to find the solution. But many times, as Mohammed saying, we create a problem first, and then we try to find the solution. So I think it's us that somehow push that. If you make something straight with 6 meter column to column, the engineer is not going to complain. I'm sure he's going to be happy. Pushing that and creating that initial problem, I think it's always coming from the designer first.
He will still complain on the 6 meter span, by the way. But anyway, they all walked out, so you can talk about the engineers. They all walked out crying, so that's okay. Oh, sorry.
We love engineers.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to speak as well. Let me ask one more question before I open it up to the audience. Okay, so then one final question to wrap this up with. Is the collaboration between architects and engineers a one-way street where engineers are tasked with solving problems created by impractical designs?
Who said that?
No, it really depends on the engineer and on the architect. Some architects, maybe some of us, push the boundaries just for pushing the boundaries. And some engineers push back just for pushing back. So it's depending on the people, but generally, yes, it's a problem working with engineers. But definitely we have to push the boundaries. I mean, what's the point? Otherwise, the engineers can design the buildings. No, I mean, it's they're more than capable to do it. So we are there just to push their boundaries.
Okay. How do you guys see it?
In many cases, the engineers do, and we're skipped. Sometimes it is like that. It goes only through an engineer. Not often, but it happens, and we've seen it many times, and I agree, it's a problem. But it's also a matter of culture, so we all operate in large teams. A building cannot be designed on its own, on one person's effort, and the culture of that team is very important. So where you foster a collaborative environment with a push and pull that's beneficial between the two, the love of creation, you'll find beautiful work all the time and no conflicts. Where it's just a machine, I just need to clock my hours and finish and give on time. Yeah, no, everybody's going to complain. The architect about the engineer and the engineer about the architect. Yeah.
But before, before there were no engineers. Historically, the architect
there
had
was
to.
a master builder, right?
Exactly.
So we had no issue until we started introducing the designation of various activities and. I'm an urban designer as well. So for me, if I look at tradition, there was no urban design. It was the architect who used to design cities. Think of Le Corbusier. And the more we move forward, the more industry and academia create a split between disciplines. Very good universities take it as an opportunity and bridge the gap creatively, as the examples we've heard. Most university cannot. And that's where we end up with issues. But it is what it is.
You see, universities play a big role. You see the difference. I mean, I'm from Spain. I study in Spain. Our architecture, Portugal, Spain, Italy, is way more conservative than the architecture that is coming definitely from the AA or Bartlett or any of these. So I think even the ways they teach you, I think it will impact a lot the architecture of the whole country.
But
as well.
because in Spain or Italy, the architect is responsible for the structure.
We design the structure.
He's an engineer.
Whether you
yes.
design it or not, it's your responsibility. Whereas in England, no. I can do anything. If an engineer signs it, it's his problem. So I think this also is the kind of limitation that they're forcing the architect to have these limits.
Structure, Mohammed mentioned structure. When I studied architecture, was the 6 years of architecture. Structure was one of the biggest subjects we had, and I agree with Mohammed. At the end, that limits a lot the creativity.
Yeah.
Because okay, you design this, and you say, no, it's not possible because of this. But you see a lot of difference between those, especially north of Europe or many other universities, and the more conservative ones, especially Portugal, Spain, Italy.
I'll play the devil's advocate. So I also did quite a bit of structures. Maybe they limited me, I don't know. But they allowed me to interact better with the engineers. So you can talk to an engineer much better when you first graduate than someone who did not take those structural courses, I think. And that's an advantage, small advantage, because then practice runs its course. You're reformatted. But it's not bad.
So it fosters collaboration. I mean, you need to almost speak both languages to be able to understand, well, on both sides of the device, yeah.
I don't speak structural language. I don't speak that language.
Alrighty, we have a bit of time left. So, gentlemen, I'll give you a chance to speak. Questions? Woohoo! Love to take those. Here you go.
Question to my friend Mohammed Adib. Can we get a case study where you wanted an architecture monument to go forward and the engineers were highly challenged and they were negative, severely negative?
How much time do you have?
We have a lot of time.
I have 15 minutes for you, Mohammed.
Every single project. No, I think really, in reality, we've never reached a position where the building did not go ahead. Yes, we have to challenge them. We have to push them to the limit. But we are also reasonable people sometimes. And when they come back and they convince us that something has to be that, there is. Every building, as I was saying before, it has to have a meaning. It has to have a use. It has to have a function. If there is one part that has to be spectacular, we have to find a solution for it. If as Alvaro was saying, a cantilever needs to be 20 meters, we have to find a solution for it. It's part of the concept. We can reduce other things. We're talking about during design. The client comes afterwards and does the 20 columns from the 20-meter span. That's something else. But as a concept, we have to work together and find the solution. I've never said, okay, this building cannot go through. I've changed structural engineers until they said yes, but I've never had a position where something hasn't gone through.
Mohammed, can you share something maybe about a project that you worked on that was on the engineering side incredibly challenging, but in the end the building went up, but something, can you give us like maybe an example that we know, that we can see somewhere? Something that's not a secret.
Yes. No, I can't talk about any of the secrets. I talk something that's completed. Actually, this example of the cantilever is quite relevant. It was something that for functionality, the plot was very small. The ground floor, we had to get access of cars and things, and it was totally flying over that. In that case, really, we went through 3 different engineers till we achieved it. This is a project in Spain, and it's just the limitations of the plot, the limitations of the neighboring buildings, just gave us no other option to do that. And everyone said it was not possible, and we had to find different solutions, much more complicated, not to do with the structure, but to do with the functionality. Whereas in that case, we said, no, the functionality is the most important thing. The cars had to come in and out. They said, no, put it straight in, a car lift, something like that. This destroys the whole idea of the thing. And that's why we had to push back and insist on a solution that could work.
Thanks for sharing. Like these real life examples, they always make it so much more lively. Another question?
This will be more answer on your last question and agreement with Yasha regarding the collaboration. And I need to agree with Alvaro regarding the architecture because I'm also from Europe. I can't agree with you, Mohammed. But regarding the architecture, we also, because I'm civil, we had separate floors for architecture, and that's the traditional architecture. Designing is something else. But I will just share the last month I was called in Dubai for architecture company to do this solving in advance in design phase. That means that was the answer in the last question, in agreement with Yasha, that it's better to be in the beginning together, and now I can agree with Mohammed. 3 engineers can exchange, but yeah, on the end, everything is possible once when we are in the beginning together.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ooh.
Thank you. So I just wanted to ask if you guys agree that sometimes if we don't push so I'm an architect, I just graduated from the AA as well. So if sometimes the architect doesn't push the engineers, then you can't push forward. Like, for example, the example of cantilevers, it used to be 2 meters, and then some people pushed, and then it became 4, and then it became more. And then sometimes when you push to push the boundaries, it helps future, like, progress to push forward and forward, and then it becomes the normal, and then you have to kind of push again.
I don't think you need to push all the time. I think sometimes a humble approach is also equally valuable. You know, you amazing site or amazing project, and just staying humble. I don't think every architecture that at least that we do needs to try to make a statement by the shape of it. Maybe just the right lighting, the nice sun in the morning, getting into the room, the nice sunset. If all these things are gonna make as well a very nice project. And maybe it's just 1 story and a square villa, because I don't think it needs to be a statement every time you take the pen and try to draw something. So we don't need to fight all the time. Sometimes we can agree easily.
Did you do structure? Did you study? Which year?
This year mainly. So I just graduated 3rd year.
Okay.
I finished my undergraduate, so a little bit this year. But
It's going downhill.
I studied at the AA, the Architectural Association in London. So yeah, we did a lot of design, a lot based on design. But yeah, no, I do agree that it doesn't always have to be a push. But sometimes if we don't push, things don't progress. That's something I was just wondering about.
So sometimes leave the boxing gloves at home, right? That's what we're saying.
Hi. I just want to, I don't really have a question. I just want to reiterate a point that you and Yusra said before about people wanting to see every corner of the spaces these days with the advancement of softwares. And because I run a visualization studio, so, being an architect, sometimes clients are, they really want to see photorealistic renders. And there was a time we were obsessed with creating realistic images. But slowly we realized that there is little left to imagination when we were working in this domain, because then everything you see already, and it's not even built, and it's all real, and how the light falls on it, and there's very little left to imagine. So, but then I think that's inevitable in a sense that people become more aware. Now clients know that this is possible, and even they can do it to an extent with AI or whatever. But I think as creative people, we have to find something where we can sort of leave something to imagination. So like in our case, we started to make films and renders which are not really realistic, and we started to shift it to more dreamy and stuff like that. So, but what do you think about this, like in terms of its inevitability? Like, how do we then sort of, because even architects are on the creative side, we are as a studio also on the creative side. So, to find that balance, to be able to sort of also, work with that idea. It's interesting because people want to see things. We cannot deny that. But yeah.
I'll take it. Okay. So it is inevitable. At the end of the day, we are service providers. Yes, all architects have a bit of an ego. Okay, but we need a client to exist. And so we need to serve that client. And the inevitability is that we are going towards more and more visualization. I mean, when I graduated, it used to be renders. Now we do virtual reality walkthrough, like we walk through the project. So we need to adjust. Already we come from an industry that's a little bit backwards when it comes to innovation if we compare it to medicine and other sciences. Not in your case, because you've studied in a place that's very innovative. But in general, architects and engineers are a little behind. We do things the old way. So if we also limit the desires of our clients, I think we will have very little progress. So I think we should listen to the market and we should push through with all the disclaimers possible and remind the clients of what we can do at a certain time and what we really cannot, not because of anything but the limits of the time. And it's a work in progress.
I think, I mean, when you're studying, you always do more artistic renders. When you're client, you do more realistic renders. So I think some clients still would like the artistic, some projects would lend to it, and also depending on the area, I mean, if you're doing a project in north of Norway, when it's foggy and icy, and obviously it's nice, you cannot do an image like that here because every day is the same. But with photorealistic renders, I think it's a problem because you have to take a lot of decisions very early, but also sometimes it works to the advantage of the designer because the clients start discussing things which have absolutely no importance about the space. First of all, when you do photorealistic, you cheat, obviously. You make the ceiling higher, you take the wall where you're taking, you take it from outside, you change the focal points. All these things are not real. It's not real, but it looks more realistic. But you put a horrible looking toilet roll holder in the toilet, and the whole meeting talks about that, and then at the end you say, okay, I'll change the toilet roll holder, and everything else is approved. So it's good and bad doing photorealistic. But
even you're taking decision on something that you might not know. In the photorealistic, there is lighting, there is landscape, there is interior design, there is everything. Where maybe you're not the expert, and as Mohammed is saying, maybe say, no, but I don't like how this light is hitting the wall. I say, yeah, but the lighting designer didn't come on board yet. So I think, yeah, the client will request them, but that has open a lot of Pandora boxes as well.
Thank you for that question. I will take one last question if there is any. Once, twice, nothing? Okay, great. Then we're going to wrap up this session. Thank you so much for contributing. Thank you, Yusra. Thank you, Alvaro. And thank you so much, Mohammed.